Hey Hunters, Halo Zoo here, back for yet another look into D&D 5.5. So, with the last of the original classes, we're here with the Warlock, and its redesigned workings. This is how you progress with the Warlock. So, one of the biggest things you'll notice, though, is that there's not much that's changed with Warlock itself, except some of the numbers. But there is a massive change with the Pact Boons specifically. So we'll get a bit more into that. So at first level, you get Otherworldly Patron and Pact Boon Initiate and Pact Magic. So you get both your Patron and Pact Boon at first level. So you start off unique. Second level, you get Eldritch Invocations, as you did before. But you start with 4, not 2. So the idea is that you're going to get roughly double the number of invocations. And every odd level, or actually every even level, except for 4th, you get 2 new invocations. So basically, you start with 4, and you go all the way to 6th level until you get your, or 5th level until you get your 6 extra invocations. So every odd numbered level, actually, this always trips me up. Anyway, so you start with 4, and then every time you get new invocations, you get 2 instead of 1. However, you get a ton more choices, so yeah, there is a ludicrous number of invocation choices now. But at 3rd level, you're going to get a patron feature. 4th, ability score improvement and defeat. So, not much to talk about there. 5th level, also you start with 3 cantrips and go up to 6 now. That's regular for a lot of classes now. With 8 being the most you can get, so you still have the smallest amount, but it's just, hey, you get an extra cantrip, and you get one later. But 5th level, of course, 2 invocations. 7th level, or 6th level. I'm really bad about that today. Sorry. Patron feature and Pact Boon Adept, which some of those may look familiar. Not going to spoil too much just yet, but you might recognize some of those. 7th level, 2 new invocations. 8th level, ability score increase in a feat. 9th level, 2 invocations. 10th level, you get a patron feature. 11th level is the first Mystic Arcanum, which gives you a 6th level spell slots to use. And that does work slightly differently than before. And you also get 2 more invocations. 12th level, ability score improvement and defeat. 13th level, 2 invocations, and the 7th level Mystic Arcanum. 14th, you get Patron feature and Pact Boon Master. So you get your final feature of your Pact Boon. 15th, 2 invocations, 8th level Mystic Arcanum. 16th, ability score improvement and defeat. 17th level, you get the 9th level Mystic Arcanum and 2 invocations. 18th gives you Eldritch Mastery, which is slightly modified, I think. 19th, ability score improvement and defeat, plus 2 invocations. 20th, Arcanum Master and a patron feature. Also, real quickly, we are not looking at the invocations today, as they are, let us say, highly unfinished. As in, I don't have the description for any written down. But anyway, moving on to the core features. HP, D8 per level for hit dice. Starting HP is 8 plus con score to match what all the classes get now. HP per level is 5 plus con, or D8 plus con if you're rolling for some reason. Proficiencies, same as before. Light armor proficiency, simple weapon proficiency, no tool proficiency, wisdom and charisma saves, and pick 2 from amongst Arcana, Deception, History, Intimidation, Investigation, Nature, Persuasion, which I added in, Religion, Sleight of Hand, and Stealth for your skills. You do get Pact Magic, which still based off Charisma, still using Arcane Focus, cantrips, spells known, number of spells, and your spells of 6th level or higher do not count as part of this. They are separate. So, and also at 1st, 3rd, 5th, 7th, and 9th level, you learn an extra spell, but one of those spells does have to be from your patron's spell list. So you do get an additional spell choice at those levels, but you are going to have to choose from your patron's expanded list, which does work slightly different. And then the plus number is the number of Mystic Arcanum spells you know. You also get Pact Magic slots, so this is more smoothed out. So you still start with 1, get your second one a level later than before, but that's actually working a bit differently. And you get the 4th slot at 11th level, and then you get a 5th slot at 15th. So it ramps up a bit more than it did before. I'm actually going to add a 6th slot at the end. Or, no, actually, I think I'm fine. But, of course, it still ramps up as it did before. But you'll notice you get Mystic Arcanum spell slots. So, how it works basically is that you can now use Mystic Arcanum now gives a spell slot as well, which is used to cast the Mystic Arcanum spell. But you can also upcast your other spells if you wanted to. So, you still have the ability to cast any spell. And that has to do with Arcana Master. So, you do get an additional 6th and 7th level one. So, Otherworldly Patron, your Impact Boon, Pact Magic, they work simple enough. Eldritch Invocations, whenever you gain a level, you may swap an invocation you know with another the same level or lower as one you originally learned. So, basically, it's a long way of saying that, hey, you can't learn more than like 2 invocations at the highest level you can learn. Might reword that a bit, but it's the idea. Mystic Arcanum, similar to what it did before, except you get the spell slot. Which, and learn a 6th level spell of your choice. Eldritch Mastery, whenever you roll initiative with no Pact Magic slots remaining, i.e. these, which still return with a short rest, you gain 1 Pact Magic spell slot. Arcanum Master, gain additional 6th and 7th level Mystic Arcanum spell slot, and whenever you use a Mystic Arcanum spell slot, you regain 1 expanded Pact Magic spell slot. So, it's just a simple final feature. Like, the last 2 features are kind of simple, but kind of let you do more Warlocky stuff more often. And the invocations are your main thing with the base progression. So, that is a big deal, which sadly I won't be able to fully show off. Now, with the patrons, we'll see them. So, we have the Arcfey here. You notice they have expanded spells, a Patron's Language, Soul Step, and Fey Presence. So, expanded spells, put simply, you choose something. So, they all work like this, by the way. So, for Arcfey, you choose Summer or Winter. And that determines your extra spells. So, there is one column which is, this is just intrinsic to being this like having this patron, you get these 5 spells as part of your list. But you choose Summer or winter in the case of Arcfae, and you get the shown list here. So if you choose summer, your spell list will pretty much be roughly similar to how the base Arcfae Warlock in 5e is, but if you choose winter, you get a different set of spells to utilize. You also learn an extra language. In this case, for Arcfae, it is Sylvan. You also get a soul ability. For Arcfae, this is Soul Step, which ties into a secondary stat. This is basically the Warlock Pact Boons of 4e, except slightly modified. So once per round, as a free action after you drop a creature to 0 HP, a creature in 5 feet of you dies, or a creature with one of your Warlock spells on it drops to 0 HP. You get to teleport Dex times 5 feet to an unoccupied space you can see. Basically, it's just the ability that Fae Warlock had in the past in 4e, brought over to 5e with the Soul ability. Fae Presence, kind of what it was before. Standard action, force creatures in a 15-foot cube in front of you. Make a whiz save using your spell DC. Be charmed or frightened, your choice for all of them. Until the end of your next turn. Short or long rest to reuse it. 3rd level, Power of the Fae. Once per round as a free action, you can deal Dex, Psychic, and either Cold or Radiant. Not technically dependent on this, but it is intended to be like, there's a thematic choice for each. To a creature in 60 feet of you that fails a saving throw against one of your Warlock spells or abilities, which doesn't end the effect early. So, like if you Charm Person somebody, then Power of the Fae can trigger, but it doesn't break that spell for you damaging the creature. 6th level, you have Misty Escape. Whenever you take damage, and Power of the Fae might be changed, like all the Power of Blank features might be changed. It's weird. I don't know what to do with them right now. Misty Escape. Whenever you take damage, you can use a reaction to turn invisible till the start of your next turn and teleport up to Dex times 5 feet. The invisibility ends early if you cast a spell or attack. Once you use this feature, short or long rest before using it again. Beguiling Defense, immune to being charmed. Once per round when a creature attempts to charm you, you can use a free action to instead make that creature do a whiz save or be charmed by you for 1 minute or until it takes damage. 14th, Dark Delirium. Standard action, can force a creature in 60 feet of you to make a whiz save against your spell DC, or be stuck in illusionary vision for 1 minute or until you lose concentration, which is similar to a spell but doesn't count as concentrating on a spell. So this does not actually take up your concentration. It just works like concentration on a spell. So you can still have Hex up and use Dark Delirium. Spell ends this ends early if it takes damage. While its effect is active, charmed by or frightened by you, and can only see or hear you, the illusion in themselves. Once you use this feature, short or long rest before using it again. Arcfae's Chosen. So the Chosen features kind of standard, but this might also change. But you can use a move action on your turn to teleport Dex times 5 feet. So basically, you get Soul Step at will. But keep in mind, you can Soul Step and Arcfae's Chosen the same turn. Power of the Fae deals plus Charisma damage. That's something that all of them do. You have additional uses of Fae Presence, Misty Escape, and Dark Delirium with each short or long rest, so you get 2 uses of each. So you have 2 Fae Presence, 2 Misty Escape, and 2 Dark Delirium with every rest. And you'll notice a Pact of the Chain part here. What is this? Basically, Pact of the Chain is now going to give you some features dependent on your patron. So, I'll talk a bit more about that in a bit, but so basically, you're going to have 2 features that care about your patron. For Pact of the Chain, the familiars are Sway the Dragon and Sprite, and then this Pact Spirit is Summon Fae. So the Pact Familiars is basically just like, I'll reveal this now. extra choices from Find Familiar with Pact the Chain are now patron dependent. Currently, there will only be 2 choices per patron, but the idea is that each patron now has unique choices that are actually thematically relevant to your patron. So, for Arcane and the Fiend, you get 2 of the original 4 extras, but the old one is going to get 2 new ones, which you'll see in a bit. So the Fiend, expanded spells, you get to choose Hellfire or Hoarfrost. Hellfire is pretty much the list you had before. Hoarfrost gives you some new spells, like the new Chill Strike. There's Rhymes Binding Ice, Slow, Ice Storm, and Cone of Cold. So just some cold-themed spells. The language for the Fiend is Abyssal or Infernal. So they do get a choice, but that's because why wouldn't they have a choice? Soul Feast, it's actually Dark One's Dark One's Blessing was originally, except it works like a soul ability, so it's not just when you kill a creature, it's also when a creature with a Warlock spell or in 5 feet of you dies, in addition to just when you kill a creature. And it's temporary hit points. Dark One's Blessing is now, whenever a source would grant you temporary hit points, you gain twice that amount of temporary hit points instead. So this is actually Con times 2, but if you were to have a spell like, I don't know, Armor of Agathis, well, that also gets double THP. Also, False Life gives you double THP. That could change. Not 100% happy with Dark One's Blessing now, but it's like, it got changed into the soul ability, so it had to change. Power of the Fiend, once per round is free action. You can deal Con, Necrotic, and Cold or Fire damage to a creature in 60 feet of you. That dealt damage to you this turn. So basically you get a kind of mini Hellish Rebuke, so whenever you're dealt damage, you can use a free action to deal damage back to that creature. 6th level, Dark One's Own Luck. When they roll a saving throw, skill, or tool check, you can use a free action to add +con to the roll. Must finish to short or long rest before using this again. So you also notice they actually care about Constitution now. Just like Arcfey cares about Dex, they care about Con. 10th level, Fiendish Resilience. Whenever you finish a long rest, choose a damage type. And this is any damage type, energy or physical, so all of them. You have resistance to that damage type until you finish your next long rest. Silvered/magical weapons ignore this resistance. So, similar to what it was before, just slightly different wording. 14th level, Hurl Through Hell. Whenever you damage a creature with an attack or spell, you can use a free action to force them to make a Dex save using your spell save DC. Or you teleport the target through the lower planes until the end of your next turn, causing them to disappear for the duration. When they reappear in their previous space or the nearest space possible if it's occupied, taking 6d12 cold, fire, necrotic, and psychic damage. If they succeeded, they take 3d12 fire, necrotic, and psychic damage. Once you use this, finish a long rest before using it again. Fiend's Chosen. Power of the Fiend deals plus charisma damage. Gain extra use of Dark One's Own Luck and Hurl Through Hell with each rest. And Fiendish Resilience grants resistance to 2 damage types instead of 1 each long rest. Pact the Chain, your familiars are the Imp Familiar and Quasit Familiar. And your Pact Spirit is now Summoned Fiend. The old one, which I forgot to give its own page. So the expanded spells, you have a choice between Madness and Stars. Madness is pretty much what you had before, minus Clairvoyance, which has been replaced with Hypnotic Pattern. You still get Sending, though. And then Stars, you have Guiding Bolt, Moonbeam, Sunbolt, Radiant Purge, and Dawn. Patron's language for this one is Deep Speech. And that one is actually a reference to how the old one Pact was originally Star Pact in 4E and had a minor Radiant theme playing along with like celestial stars and stuff. being a part of it. So decided to bring that back with this. You also get the Soul Sight ability. So once per round when a creature dies with something nearby or something you have kills it, it can gain plus half int rounded up to an attack roll, saving throw, or skill true check of your choice before the end of your next turn. So basically you get an ability, a bonus to a d20 roll before the end of your next turn whenever you kill something. It's a small buff, but it's a buff nonetheless, and designed to kind of keep it from being a bit too absurd at times. Might just make it flat int, but I'm going to keep it to half int right now because I think that's going to be safer. Awakened Mind can use telepathy on creatures in 60 feet of you. Speak with any creature that understands at least one language. And it's just like, it's pretty much what it was before. So, yeah. Power of the Old One. Can deal int, psychic, and necrotic or radiant damage to a creature in 60 feet of you that willingly moves to a space closer to you or in 5 feet of you. So basically, if a creature approaches you, you can deal damage to them, or if they move to another space in 5 feet of you, they also can take that damage. It's specifically so Pact of the Blade, if you are mixing it with this one, which is now possible, by the way, then you get to trigger Power of the Old One. Entropic Ward at 6th level. Whenever a creature makes an attack roll against you, you can use your reaction to impose disadvantage on that attack roll. If it misses, your next attack roll against that creature in the next minute has advantage. Otherwise, you take minus int damage, and the attacker takes int, psychic, and necrotic or radiant damage. Once you use this feature, you must finish a short or long rest before using it again. So basically, like, you're able to impose disadvantage on an attack roll, but if you still get hit, then you take less damage, and that damage is then given over to the attacker. Thought Shield. Thoughts can't be read unless you allow them to be. You have resistance to cold, psychic, and radiant damage. Whenever you take cold, psychic, or radiant damage, you can have the creature that dealt that damage take the same amount of damage, which can't be prevented. This feature can be used int times before needing long rest to regain expended uses. Great Thrall. Standard action, touch an incapacitated creature. Just make a whiz save or you charm it as your Thrall. So remove curse is cast on it. Charmed condition is removed. You end it as a standard action by touching it. The Thrall dies or you use this feature again. While charmed this way, you can telepathically communicate it with regardless of distance while you're on the same plane. So it kind of works as it did before. Old One's Chosen, Power of the Old One, and Entropic Ward deal plus charisma damage. Note, it does not reduce the damage you take even further, but it does increase the damage you deal back. So they take some extra damage. Thought Shield has twice int uses, and you have an extra use of Entropic Ward with each rest. And you can have 2 Thralls at a time with Create Thrall. And your familiars are the Flump and the Gazer familiar. You also get Summon Aberration as your Pact Spirit. But the idea is that you have your like familiar choices, which are kind of fun. And the Flump was more like, yeah, I know a lot of players will want that as a more like fun and silly familiar, but the Gazer is more of like one that was actually picked by people on Subda, the Subda server. I let them pick it as I'm like, what else should I pick for this one? And that was the one I decided on because I wanted the second one to be a bit more serious than the Flump. So sadly, Cranium Rat did not make it, but I'm happy with the Gazer. It's like it's kind of a neat one. Anyway, Pact Boons. So, few notes. Each Pact Boon now comes with proficiencies. And the first level feature is a bit different. And, yeah, that is what you think it is. Anyway, So for Pact of the Tome, your bonus proficiency is with Calligrapher's Supplies and one of the following skills, and it's just the knowledge skills. Kind of decided to add this as a sort of like a more academic themed warlock. So here's some academic skills and a sort of like master of writing tool to kind of go with your class, your features. Tome of Secrets. This has been changed. So you gain an additional Pact Magic spell slot just for choosing Pact of the Tome. You are the dedicated caster now. You get more spell slots with Pact Magic, meaning you're able to cast more spells. You also gain the Tome of Secrets. It's renamed Tome of Shadows, which you can replace with a 10-minute long ritual as part of a short or long rest if it's ever destroyed. And you choose a class with the spellcasting or Pact Magic feature at first level and choose 2 cantrips and a first-level spell from that class. While you're holding your Tome of Secrets, you can cast the chosen spells as if they were Warlock spells. These can be retrained as normal, but the class you cannot retrain currently. So basically you get 3 additional spells. You don't get 3 cantrips anymore, but you do get an extra first-level spell of any class. And they all have to be from the same class, so kind of way of pulling it back a little bit while also making it a bit more interesting, especially to combat the fact that the other 2 are much more interesting than they were before at base level, so this is now also becoming a bit more powerful. 6th level, Agonizing Spells. Whenever you cast a Warlock spell, it deals damage to 1 or more creatures. Deal plus Charisma damage to the total damage dealt to each creature affected. So this is Agonizing Blast. However, it's no longer an invocation and is no longer Eldritch Blast specific. So the idea is that whenever you damage a creature with a Warlock spell, you deal plus Charisma damage to that creature. But it's not per attack. So like if you do 2 Eldritch Blast bolts at a single enemy, well, that enemy just takes plus Charisma damage on one attack, but not the other. This is also how Repelling Blast and Grasp of Dar are going, and Lance of Lethargy are going to work. So those 3 are now once per target. So each creature affected only takes Agonizing Spells damage once per cast of the spell. But if you target 2 creatures with an Eldritch Blast, both get the effects of Agonizing Spells. So basically it's a slight nerf to make it where your single target damage is nowhere as absurd as it was, and more in line with what the other classes are able to do, and make Eldritch Blast nowhere near as absurd. 14th level, you have Tome Surge. Once per day is a free action on your turn. You can regain half your Pact Magic spell slots rounded up. So basically literally next level, you regain... So literally, you regain 3 of your Pact Magic spell slots. Because you start... When you first get it, at 14th level, you have 4. You have 5. But then you get 6, so... Yeah. You get 3 Pact Magic spell slots back once per day. Pact of the Blade. This one has been upgraded and fixed. This is one of the 2 main ones that I knew needed to be changed. And I will preface this with, there's a reason Hexblade is not going to be returning in the future for 5.5, and it's because it got eaten by this. Anyway, bonus proficiencies. For Pact of the Blade, you gain proficiency with medium armor, shields, and martial weapons, just like what Hexblades used to get. And Hexblade is actually going to be succeeded by the Shadow Lord, which is a quote-unquote new patron that is kind of taking Hexblade's spot. But your packed weapon, choose a melee weapon you're proficient with. Your packed weapon becomes the chosen weapon. As a bonus action on your turn, you can summon your packed weapon in an open hand or unsummon it. Your packed weapon always counts as magical and can be used as an arcane focus. So basically, you just get it as a spellcasting focus as well. You can also use charisma for the attack and damage rolls of your packed weapon's attacks. So basically, Hex Warrior has been the best part of Hex Warrior right here is now just part of Pact of the Blade because it just makes it actually playable. Whenever you gain a level, you may choose another weapon you're proficient with, including one you just gained proficiency with, to make your packed weapon, replacing your previous choice. If your packed weapon is the thrown property, it returns to your hand after every time you throw it. You can also turn a magic weapon or artifact weapon, such as, Black Razor, you're holding and proficient with into your packed weapon as a 1-hour ritual, which can be during a short or long rest. When it is no longer your packed weapon, it reappears in your hand. So basically, you're able to turn... it does work a bit different to how it did before, but that is similar to Kensei because of exotic weapons returning, so it couldn't really work the same way as it did. So now you have a slightly different effect to how it works. So you don't gain proficiency with any weapon, but if you have proficiency with it, you can choose it. And you cannot change it at will anymore, but that's going to be part of improved packed weapon now. So it's going to be something you get with that invocation as a plan for it. 6th level is Thirsting Blade. Remember that invocation that you used to just take no matter what if you're playing Pact of the Blade? Yeah. It's just baseline to Pact of the Blade now. Admittedly, it's one of the 2 laziest designs, but at the same time, your 5th level invocation is now actually a choice. So I think players will appreciate that at least. So when you take the attack action to attack with your packed weapon, you can make 2 attacks with it instead of 1, or cast a Warlock cantrip that requires a melee weapon with it, and make 1 normal attack with it. So basically, it's only with your packed weapon now, but you can also Booming Blade and make a normal attack with your packed weapon. Blade Surge, once per day, make attack roll with your packed weapon, plus prof to the attack roll, make the attack roll deal plus 3d10 force damage on hit, deals half on a miss in this attack. So basically, improved attack, deals more damage, more accurate, and half damage on a miss. So, back to the chain. Last but not least, bonus proficiency is Deception, Intimidation, or Persuasion, because I felt like those kind of fit better with the idea of you have this companion that you've coerced into service. So you get a social skill as a result. Pact Familiar. Learn the Find Familiar first level spell. Doesn't count against Warlock spells known. You can also cast it as a ritual without using a material component. When you cast Find Familiar, you can choose from additional familiar options determined by your patron. You can use a bonus action on your turn to make your familiar attack a creature of your choice it can reach on its next turn. So basically, you get a bonus action, make your familiar attack somebody. Pact Spirit. As a bonus action, you can cause your Pact Familiar to vanish for 10 minutes, replacing it with a Summon Spirit for that duration. Its stats are the same as the spirit summoned by the spell determined by your patron, and the spell level is considered your Pact Magic spell slot level. You can use this feature charisma times before requiring a long rest to regain expended uses. So basically, in the patrons, it showed a Pact Spirit spell. That's what that is for. So for Arcfey, you summon a Fey Spirit from the Summon Fey spell. Fiend, it's Fiend Spirit. old one, it's Aberration Spirit. And basically it replaces your familiar, but it is a more powerful summon, so I don't think you care too much, at least. 14th level, Chain Surge. As a standard action, you can grant every creature summoned by you, including packed familiars and spirits, temporary hit points equal to your level. They have plus prof to their next attack roll and deal plus 2d8 extra damage with their next damage roll with an attack that hits. So basically, you just make all your summons more powerful, grant them a boost in temporary hit points, and their next attack is more powerful, of course. Actually, also going to add that the summon spell, if it's not on your spell list, then you get it as part of your spell list. So it doesn't count as part of... No. So it doesn't count as part of your main expanded spell list, but it is like, hey, you get this extra spell if you don't already have access to it. But anyway, that is the Packed Boons. So, the extra spells. So, once again, we're just going to talk about the errata spells and new and 5.5 spells. So, errata spells, Acid Splash, just kind of felt like the acid spell just kind of fit what I thought of Warlock. Like, it just seemed to fit, you know, you're dissolving stuff. And it was kind of a fun spell to add in. Encode Thoughts is added to spell lists where it's actually relevant, so yeah. Vicious Mockery, meanwhile, just adding more to the psychic spellcasters, so Warlock is one of them. We also have the new spells, including Bone Talon, since Warlocks are one of the dark casters and have a penchant for necromancy. Energy Ward, because you got Blade Ward, so you get the energy version. Frozen Slash, the new Blade spell. Phantom Blade, which summons the Illusionary Dagger. Poison Bolt, which is an actually useful poison spell that deals damage twice. Thunderburst, which is a AoE thunder spell from a distance. And Ward Strike, which is Ward Strike. And it's just kind of a fun force spell that utilizes Abjuration to its advantage. First level, you have access. The eroded spells include Chaos Bolts, which is added in to sort of just be a fun spell that's like, hey, you know, you have a more chaotic magic side. So I decided to add it in to break exclusivity and also kind of bring it over to a class that I think might enjoy having it. Inflict Wounds and Ray of Sickness are here to expand their necromantic arsenal. Meanwhile, Sleep is here just as a... Which actually reminds me. Yeah, I removed that. Just as a spell that, like, kind of fits the manipulative side of Warlock to an extent. While Detect Good and Evil and kind of has an interesting reason for being eroded here, but the idea is that you're able to detect a lot of things that you might make a pact with, such as... So it's like, you know, why not give Warlock the ability to detect things that they would make pacts with, especially when they have access to protection from good and evil. So why not give them detect good and evil? And identify, I kind of flavored it as you have the ability to ask your patron, hey, do you have any knowledge of this item? So, and I think that kind of fits in flavorfully, even if it's like, it doesn't fit with Warlock's arsenal. It's, in my opinion at least, a thematically appropriate and fun spell. So Anticipate, Psychic spell to add in, Mage Sword, summon a Blade of Force to attack people with, Mind Blast, just damage all enemies around you with psychic energy, Soul Strike, sacrifice some of your health to deal damage to an opponent, which is very much a thing that, let's be honest, it's a very Warlocky spell, as most of the new Necromancy spells are, but that one in particular, it's like, yeah, sacrifice your health to hurt your enemies. Yeah, that sounds like a Warlock thing. And Summon Sentinel Spirit, it's there. Summon a spirit to help you in combat. It's like a mystical ally of sorts. Simple, but it works. Second level, you got a lot of damage spells, actually, including Agonizer's Scorcher, Flame Blade, Flaming Sphere, Melf's Acid Arrow, Snow's Snowball Swarm, and Tasha's Mind Whip, just to kind of expand their offensive arsenal, while also making it where you have some good damage options. You also get See Invisibility, because it's just a useful spell to have sometimes. As for new spells outright, you have Life Drain, which once again is a very Warlock thing to do. Taking life from your opponents to heal yourself. Mage Bow, Mage Sword, but with a ranged weapon. Simple enough. And Ward Burst, just blast enemies away from you, or an ally with a protective spell on them from you, such as a protection from good and evil. Albeit, there are some builds in the future that might have better use of that spell. But right now, you can always protection from good and evil somebody and use that on them. Third level, a Chardalon Stride. Just make your footsteps fiery, which actually kind of fits some Warlocks, I'd imagine. Feign Death, Life Transference, and Spirit Guardians are kind of Necromancy adjacent spells, albeit Spirit Guardians isn't one for some reason, but it's staying Conjuration for now. Might change it. But also Spirit Guardians, it fits with Spirit Shroud, so yeah. New spells, Bone Spear, Necromancy spell, so of course you get it. Cold Snap, freeze a target solid, like our lovely Ice Cube patron for the Fiends. Because yes, there is a patron who's just an Ice Cube. I don't remember who he is off the top of my head, but there's one devil that's actually in an Ice Cube, and it's hilarious. Mind Bomb and Phantom Barrage. Just some psychic spells to expand your psychic arsenal, since you're one of the main ones for that. Fourth level, Vitriolic Sphere. Just a sphere that dissolves creatures with acid, because why not? Phantom Chasm, Sight of Doom. Sort of psychic spells, while Sight of Doom is also like you might... I imagine like for Great Old One, that's going to be a fun one to have thematically. Soul Burst, just like Soul Strike, but AoE. A very Warlocky spell as well, because it's another, I sacrifice my life to damage you. So that might be fun to have around. Fifth level, Cloud Kill. Like the Dark Cast, why wouldn't they have Cloud Kill? Contagion, Necromancy spell, and kind of does fall into that as well. Immolation, because why not be able to ignite people on fire as the kind of quote-unquote evil spellcaster you are. Legend lore, meanwhile, like, why not ask your patron for knowledge of legends? That makes sense. Dispel good and evil, meanwhile, once again, you deal with fae, fiends, and aberrations and stuff, so why not have Dispel good and evil available to you as someone who deals with them a lot, so it makes sense. Bone Shards, new necromancy spell, so why not? Excise from Sight, a psychic spell that kind of falls into the manipulation category, so why not? As Warlocks are supposed to be one of the classes, one of the three best with that, with Sorcerer being fourth, but Wizard and Bard being the other two. Summon Guardian, summon a just big protector to help you out in combat. Simple enough. 6th level, Magic Jar is a necromancy spell and kind of falls into that darker side of magic where you're just trapping souls in jars and stuff, which that's a very Warlock thing to do. So why didn't you already have that? Odo's Irresistible Dance, psychic manipulation spell that is also the most fun spell for any Arc-Fae Warlock ever. It's just a silly spell to have, but it's still a fun one. Arcane Barrage, just... I don't actually know why this one's here. I must have a reason, but it's like just a barrage of magic missiles. And it's the only one you get, actually. You don't get the other two. I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, huh. I had an idea here, but I don't know what it was. Phantasmal Army, meanwhile, upgraded Phantasmal Force / Killer, so here's your next one. 7th, Mirage Arcane and Project Illusion and Simulacrum. Just some illusion / psychic spells to add to your arsenal. Sequester, just hide an object, because why not? Then Dominate Crowd as a new spell, because you're supposed to be a master of psychic stuff, so why not dominate a crowd of people? 8th level, Abi Dalzim's Horrid Wilting and Clone are both necromancy spells you didn't have before, so you get them now. Elemental Ascension, which is just all the investitures in one. And Mirrored Phantom, which I'm actually renaming Mirrored Phantasm. It's the final upgrade to the Phantasmal blank spells. Then, last but not least, at 9th, Mass Polymorph, because you get True Polymorph and Normal Polymorph, so why not have Mass Polymorph? Acidic Surge is a just wave of acid to melt your opponents and their armor. And Dreamscape, just trap an opponent in an illusionary dream. Because why not? But anyway, that's kind of it for the Warlock. They do have their familiars, and actually all of the additional companions have been added, but they're a work in progress. Might change them up a bit more. As for the invocations, put simply, the invocations have gotten kind of crazy in that there is now going to be 58 cantrip modifying invocations alone. The rest I don't even have a number for just yet, but there's going to be a lot. And it is kind of crazy now. But the idea is that, and with the new cantrip modifying invocations, every cantrip but Eldritch Blast is going to have 2 that are damaging cantrips. So basically, most of these, except Encode Thoughts, Spook, Inscribe Hedron, and Energy Ward, the rest all have invocations for them. Basically just your not utility spells all have a are all going to have 2 invocations, mostly to bridge the gap between them and Eldritch Blast, because right now, unless you're Pact of the Blade, there is no reason to use anything else. Also, with the invocations, 2 of them got removed, and 2 of them are getting reworked a bit because one of their main features is gone. But other than that, invocations are a massive work in progress, so I won't really be showing them off. But and also, Eldritch Blast isn't getting any new invocations, but it is getting its 4 original ones, minus Agonizing Blast, because that was not staying. All of them are getting slightly tweaked a bit, maybe, but they all return. So, without further ado, I hope you've enjoyed this final old class preview for D&D 5.5, the last of them all. So yeah, we've done all 12. Next week, for Wednesday's video, might be doing something a bit different. Might be a while till you start seeing the new to 5.5 classes. Not sure what I'll start with. Could be Artificer and the new class that is Artificer, at least, because it's definitely not the same, as it's not even a half-caster anymore. But could be one of the 3 psionic classes, but it will be one of those 4. But without further ado, see y'all next time. Halo Zoo out.